This video is sponsored by The Ridge. Get 10% off your order and free worldwide shipping by going to ridge.com/nameexplain and by using the code NAMEXPLAIN. The internet has blessed us with many new things that before its invention simply weren't possible. The majority of the world's information is now at our fingertips. We can buy things and the next day they appear at our door. And of course we can communicate with people from all across the globe. While this communication with other people from across the globe can be amazing, and for the whole it is, this isn't always the case. It seems one of the most reoccurring ways that people communicate online is via arguments. Sometimes over pretty big issues, sometimes over smaller niche issues. These online arguments can come and go, remaining a part of our collective online history. However, some arguments never really go away. Arguments that rage forever with no camp coming up as victorious. And one of these arguments that have been going for what seems like the dawn of time is the argument over how words are spelt. Even something I just said there might raise an argument. I use the word spelt, not spelled. Spelt seems to be the British way of using this, while spelled is more popular in America. While people love arguing over spelling full stop, it seems that arguing over British English and American English is a huge sticking point between English-speaking internet users. There are a variety of words, of course of most interest to us, nouns, that are spelled differently in British and American English. Some of these are pretty minimal, with the likes of centre and theatre having their R and E swapped around in American English, while there being some way more drastic changes like with draft, in English spelled with UGHT, while in American English this is changed to just an F. We also have things like aeroplane versus airplane, tyre versus tyre, pyjamas versus pyjamas, and it seems the most popular one to be debated over is colour and whether it should have a U in it or not. These spelling differences have been debated for years now, but how did they even come about? Why are words and names spelled differently across the globe, even though they're the exact same language? And also this video is just about spellings that differ across the Atlantic, not completely different words for the exact same things like aubergine and eggplant, sofa and couch, or nappy and diaper. Those could be a video unto themselves. However, it wasn't always people arguing over the differences in British English and American English. To start with, before the USA was even a thing, people were arguing over British English and British English. Now, this might sound a little strange. Why were people arguing over how to spell words in the exact same language? This is because for the longest time, spelling in English here in Britain wasn't formalised in any way. When writing, people would spell words in the ways they saw fit at the time, usually by simply writing them as they sounded phonetically. The best example we have of this is with William Shakespeare, who, as we've talked about previously, wrote his own name in a variety of ways throughout his life. While it seems that many people were happy spelling words willy-nilly, others weren't too thrilled with this. Those who did want to formalise and unify a way of spelling words. It doesn't help the English language is something of a mess. The language originated from a variety of West Germanic dialects spoken by the Anglo and Saxon tribes who colonised the south of England. However, since its inception, English would become influenced by a multitude of other languages, and over the years, languages like French, Latin, various Celtic languages, Greek, Norman, Dutch, Spanish and Italian would all go on to help shape the English language to what it has become today. And this explains to us some of the oddities of British English, like how with the aforementioned word theatre that goes R then E as opposed to E then R as we tend to say it. This is a French influence on the English language. As British history went on, it seems there was more demand to have the spelling of the language standardised so everyone in the land would be spelling words in the exact same way. This came to a head in 1755 when Samuel Johnson published his Dictionary of the English Language. This was no small feat, however. The dictionary took over 8 years to compile together with the assistance of 6 helpers, but the finished product contained over 40,000 words, all with definitions and quotations. It was a huge accomplishment, and the way words were spelt in this book became the standard. Well, almost. Not every spelling Johnson put forward stood the test of time. Most noticeably, he wanted there to be no words ending with C, so every word that did end with C he added a K to, e.g. music and public, though as you can probably tell this didn't really catch on. Also, what's interesting about his dictionary is the personality he gave it. This was more than just a textbook, and Johnson added some of his own sense of humour to the book, with the best example being his definition of oats. He defined them as a grain, which in England is generally given to horses, but in Scotland supports the people. And as I said, it was this dictionary that became the basis for spelling words of the English language. This was due to the fact that many printers and publishers adopted this dictionary for spell checking their works. And also, this is a slight tangent, but this is one of my favourite etymology facts and I probably won't get the chance to talk about it anywhere else. You know how we have capital letters and small letters, more commonly known as uppercase and lowercase? These names for these letters come from the days of printing books hundreds of years ago. Each letter would have an individual stamp, and these stamps would be organised into words and sentences and then printed onto paper. The stamps for the big and small letters would be kept in different cases. is. Because the small letters were used more often, the case they were in would be lower on the shelf and easier to reach, while the big letters would be stored in a higher uppercase on the shelf. We got these names for these types of letters because the small ones were stored in a lower case and the big ones were stored in an uppercase. Like I said, it has no real bearing on the rest of this video, it's just a neat fact I enjoy sharing. Anyway, this is how the English language finally became standardized after centuries of people spelling words however they wanted. It was this form of English that we now call British English. Of course, when it was first created, it was just called English, as there weren't any other popular enough forms of the language that it needed to be differentiated from. It wouldn't stay this way for long, however, as across the pond, a brand new form of English was about to be born. This would start to take place in 1776, when the 13 colonies that war with the Kingdom of Great Britain would become independent and start the formation of what is now the United States of America. While now free from the British, English was still the most popular language in these lands. English became so prominent in America as it was the language that the British brought over with them when they colonized the lands in the 17th century. So while the English language stuck around in America, they wanted their own version of the language. This desire to have their own version of English led to the publication of an American Dictionary of the English Language in 1828 by Noah Webster. Yes, that Webster. Noah Webster was a seriously clever man. As well as pioneering a new form of English in his lifetime, he was also a lawyer, newspaper editor, and politician, just to name a few roles of his. He began to compile his dictionary in 1807, and it went on to contain over 70,000 words, with 10,000 of these never being published in a dictionary before. He even added etymologies for words in his dictionary, and to aid with the uncovering of these word origins, he learnt 26 languages, which I deeply respect, but I won't be joining him for the sake of etymology, I'm afraid. Webster felt the rules of spelling in English were too unnecessarily complex, so as he wrote his dictionary, he gave words less confusing spellings, replacing them with simpler, easy to understand ones. These are the spellings we still see today in American English. This was when the U was removed from colour, the R's and E's were switched around in words like theatre, and letters he felt were unnecessary to words were either changed or removed. Though not all his spelling stayed around. Most noticeably, he wanted the word machine to be spelt like this, which makes sense when you read it around, but clearly was a step too far for some. As a Brit, and on a personal note, American English really doesn't make me that mad. I actually find American English oddly pleasing. The way words are spelled out as phonetically as possible in very literal ways, trimming the fat from them, just in general streamlining the mess that is the English language. When you compare American spellings to British spellings, you start to realise just how bizarre British English is. Though it's a seriously British ideology to insist that something that is weirder and more complex is superior to the neater, more logical option. And from this moment, these variations of English grew to the British English and American English we have today. So, which is the correct version of English? Well, they both have strong arguments. British English has been around for much longer and is fundamentally the original version of the language. Well, at least what the original version of English has evolved into. And of course, British English comes from England. So from a geographic standpoint, you could argue that British English is the correct one as that's its home. However, American English is spoken by way more people. The USA has a population of over 300 million people, while the UK has just under 70 million. And of course, while all 300 million plus people of the USA won't speak American English and vice versa, this is still a pretty good indicator as to how many more people speak American English than British English. And of course, we can't forget the popularity of American culture. American-made media is enjoyed across the globe. I'm sure there are many people whose only exposure to the English language is via American-made television, movies, games, books, etc., which use American English. Honestly, I feel there really isn't a correct answer in this one. Language is always changing and branching off into new paths, with the English language being one of these that branched off into British and American English. Why argue about who is correct when we can celebrate the fact we have two different versions of one language to enjoy? Though obviously British English is actually the correct answer. There's also the chance that many of you don't speak English, at least as your first language anyway. So I would love to hear from you guys who learn English as a second language. Which version of English did you learn? British or American? And of course, thank you once again to The Ridge for sponsoring today's video. The Ridge make really cool everyday products at a quality you don't definitely see every day. Their most popular product is the Ridge Wallet, a wallet unlike any I've ever seen before, made of metal with a sleek minimalist design. The Ridge were kind enough to give me one, and it allows me to have everything I need on me without all the additional junk I used to carry around in my old wallet. However, it's not only wallets they make. The Ridge were also kind enough to send me one of their backpacks. True story time, you may have seen I posted recently recently saying I'm having internet issues. This has meant that I've had to work in all kinds of places, from going back to my parents' house to steal their Wi-Fi to downing copious amounts of teas in coffee shops so I can justify using their internet. This has been a massive pain, but the commuter backpack the Ridge gave to me has without doubt been the silver lining in all of this. It allows me to easily carry around my iPad and Apple Pencil I use for animating, my laptop I use for writing and editing, and all their chargers with so much room to spare. It even has a dedicated pocket for a power bank with an external USB port to plug it into. Seriously, my microphone could fit in this bag too, and that would be literally everything I need for my job all in one bag. I love this backpack anyway, but I love it even more now. If you want one of the Ridge's awesome wallets, backpacks, or one of the many other things they make, then visit ridge.com/nameexplain and use the promo code NAMEEXPLAIN, which will all be linked down below for 10% off your order. So why don't you find your next favorite wallet right now by visiting ridge.com/nameexplain and by using the promo code NAMEEXPLAIN. Thank you once again to the Ridge for sponsoring this video. And of course, thank you to all my patrons who support NameExplain on a monthly basis. NameExplain depends on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive NameExplain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you.